Yeah, Luna definitely the first time here at TI5. Winter, I mean, with the Luna there, of course, just rounding out the team fight, as you said, composition. But overall, how do you feel about that lineup versus EG's?
I mean, both of them have their distinctive plans towards how they want to approach the game. I would say EG again has a much more flexible draft. They can team fight and they can split push with Storm and Gyro. Yeah. But this game, their spells to spam to defend and push out lanes are not as great as the last game. They only have the ice shots, and Impale is just average at defending lanes. So I think I.M.O would have a much better game this time around when they're sieging the towers and forcing to take fights.
At the same time, is this a similar scenario where if we get later into the game and I.M.O kind of misses their combo once or something and EG takes big advantage of that and creates chaos, that EG can just kind of run over the game? And we've had that happen with quite a few other matches.
I think their lineup's also like pretty decent with BKB, and EG's is vulnerable to mass BKBs, so I don't think they'll run into as many problems.
And this draft is much better overall.
Yeah. All right, well, let's find out. It is game 2 between EG and I.M.O.
Because eventually the Rubik and the Winter Wyvern are going to leave. So if you just go and gank YJ, right, who I've only seen play like Razor this entire tournament, if you think about it, right, then it's such a weak hero early game. Like, you have to abuse it really early on.
All right, well, welcome into the mainstream. Evil Geniuses versus I.M.O game number 2. Blitz and I were talking about it, and we really feel like I.M.O, if they could just clean up their game a little bit, we could have a very epic game on our hands here. But that's kind of what we've been saying the whole entire time, right, is that I.M.O seem to look near flawless in some of their early game where they have this plan, they're executing it very well, and then they just seem to make very simplistic mistakes.
Yeah, two things. I don't want to take anything away from EG last game. Like, they played that game absolutely phenomenally. Yeah. Like, the way that they recovered, they did that so well.
The bait out from the Universe Sumail bait out was next level.
But the reason why it sounded like we were I.M.O biased or trying to keep I.M.O in the game is not that I'm biased towards I.M.O, but it's more that in all of I.M.O's games that we've casted, they come so close to winning. Like, they play really well, and then something just seems to slip. It almost feels like they're a top-tier team for the first 15 minutes, and then something in them just mentally breaks. Yeah. And it's just disappointing to see. And
also, you can tell in a lot of games that I.M.O are facing up against, they are struggling to keep up or stay ahead, right? Like, the natural resting phase a lot of the times results in teams just being able to slowly but surely get ahead of I.M.O via out-farming them.
Yeah, so EG, absolutely dominant. I think in general, the way that we focus our cast for people that are just tuning in is we still want to make the game closer, at least be able to praise both teams equally, if not try to highlight some of the things that the losing team is doing well, despite their loss. But Sumail versus CTY mid, I'm really excited to see this just because I don't know how Sumail's possibly going to win this lane. Like, in my opinion, this just isn't a winnable lane, and I'm really surprised that I.M.O was willing to give Sumail Storm, because that's the third time I think I've seen I.M.O lose to Storm. It seems like it's a hero they struggle with, but they must feel really supremely confident in CTY's ability to beat him mid.
I mean, it is a quite one-sided matchup, right? I mean, most of the intelligence mids that face up against Leshrac are naturally going to lose. This is Storm Spirit. He has no escape mechanism. So Leshrac is just going to be able to spam out a lot of lightning bolts, and they will always bounce to Sumail because whenever you're up against Leshrac, it's all about the mid vision, right? Especially during the nighttime phase, CTY is just going to be able to spam out lightning over and over again. It just like will constantly bounce to Sumail because he's got vision over the cliff, even during nighttime.
Yeah, he actually just narrowly misses that stun, and if it had connected, CTY probably would have walked away with the first blood, but part of the problem, too, with Storm, I guess, is just the low amount of move speed that you have makes the Lightning Storm even more powerful, but that's my always 1 minute analysis of Storm in the very beginning of games where he's picked. And focusing on the other lanes, Universe at top, I think PPD actually went over there and helped him. And if you look at this mid lane, too.
So here's what he did. If you look at the Tier 2 tower area, Tuskar can actually sit here and be able to throw ice shards
look at
in a
PPD.
circle.
He's actually just dragging the creeps. I've seen this done before, but I think this might be my first seeing it in a pro game. And PPD farming out the jungle, and he's actually making this lane winnable now for Sumail, as he took away a full lane of creeps from CTY.
Yeah, he's basically next leveling the support Tusk. He gave Universe a pretty decent lane. Unfortunately, he's going to die now, though. That's going to be our first blood. Goes to DDC. We'll grab his boots up. So it looks like Universe just a bit too far forward. But he set up the lane for the creep equilibrium to push forward very early on, and now he's actually helping to win the middle lane. So this is probably why EG felt maybe a bit confident about the Storm Spirit versus Leshrac matchup, because they have this sort of ace in the hole.
Yeah, this is really neat. I like that. It's one of the ways to deal with Leshrac. And if you can actually get any sort of stacks up for Sumail, it would help a lot. But kudos to PPD for being able to actually pull it off. And in this mid lane, Lanem looks like they want to push the lane in, but PPD is just waiting. I think he actually senses that something's going to happen, and he's going to run into the Rubik right here. But this shouldn't mean a kill or anything like that, but it does mean that
PPD may just walk him out here. Yeah, he'll get some more right clicks. Lanem just buys himself time with the telekinesis. There is still the snowball. Maybe PPD can actually pick up the skill, especially when he gets in front of Lanem for another extra right click. A snowball? No, he decides against it. CTY is there, ready to go with the splitter, and that would just be a bit too dangerous.
Yeah, and this top lane, Universe still has to be careful because Winter Wyvern, the Arctic Burn, deals so well with most offlaners, and the amount of damage that your Luna can pump out with just the Lunar Blessing by being alive is quite a lot. So he does have to be fearful of this, as he even pops the spike to Carapace to try to avoid some of the damage, but 2 of those hits alone, taking out nearly a 5th of his HP, and ROTK, meanwhile, at bottom, is doing a pretty good job at bottom.
Yeah, he's had to deal with a Skywrath Mage spam, but seems he's brought enough reach in to be able to position himself very forward in lane, and because of the fact that Tusk is doing this, kind of really interesting pull scenario, as you can see it right now, exactly how it works. Looks like it does kind of bug out. Looks like the Centaur was still trying to come forward, but the Ice Shards just weren't on the perfect position. Either way, because they don't have an actual stun here in the bottom lane, the Darkseer just has to bring regen to deal with the Skywrath Mage's damage, and then he's fine. There's not much killing potential, just harassment.
Yeah, Universe is being zoned out really heavily in this top lane right now. DDC and YJ are just doing such a good job of forcing him out of this lane and making him uncomfortable, but they are going to push out the lane. This is what happens. The Luna just has such high base damage that CSing for her is so easily done, and it's just going to kill the creeps a little bit faster than you would like, and Universe is going to grab his level 3. And meanwhile, at bottom, ROTK just continues to get levels. He almost has a Soul Ring, and once he does that, I don't actually think he has to be in this bottom lane anymore. He can probably just go to the jungle camp. Because yes, you can disrupt some of the Gyrocopter's farm, but it probably isn't worth it at the risk of your own farm. And they might even go on him at bottom as he is out of mana, but he's just going to start the surge early. But he might have just trapped himself. His Fear's got phase boots, and he's looking for the angle, but just backs off.
Puts a little bit of pressure, I guess, assuming that RTK was going to be able to get away. They also could have bought maybe a TP scroll from the side shop and gotten out that way. But he'll just pop a couple more surges, getting on back to base. Back over to our middle lane. CTY's 27, 28-4 now, compared to the 23-3. Considering this is a matchup that's favored to the Leshrac, this is a very even CS.
Oh, it's beyond favorite to the Leshrac. So the fact that Sumail is somewhat close to this is going to be pretty impressive. And I'm just waiting to see how this goes, because I.M.O, if they lose another game to Storm Spirit, I would have to imagine the rest of the tournament, they're just going to live in fear of it. So This is a pretty big game, not only for I.M to keep their hopes alive, but just so it's like a confidence booster, right? Like, we can deal with this hero. We don't just have to first or second ban.
Yeah, limits your drafting capabilities if you have to always ban out a Storm Spirit in the second banning phase, rather.
Yeah, and so Fear just continues to free farm just behind the Luna, but he has an Enchanted Mango. I like that, right? It's pretty neat. It's like a nice way of having HP regen and at the same time
that extra bit of mana necessary, especially since he's versus some of these heroes that do have a lot of pressure that they're able to put forward. There's probably going to be some early team fights that happen, and you never know. That Mango could actually come and be the sort of savior, the extra rocket barrage to win the fight.
I'm a little concerned right now for EG, though, because I.M.'s supports are just doing a good job of getting ahead and keeping up in levels, and PPD is only level 2, AUI is kind of suffering equally, and they haven't been able to make anything happen, but EG's lineup, no.
I think PPD really suffered from missing one of those Ice Shards pulls.
Yeah, you have to be really precise with that, I think. Universe is rotating down to this bottom lane, and maybe they just switch completely and send PPD to the off lane. I've seen them do this before.
Why is that?
I think it's just because maybe eHome feels it's not worth it necessarily to dive the Tusk, and in this way, Universe can just switch with Fear, who can even go to the jungle or rotate to the top lane himself to pressure the Luna.
It just seems Nyx Assassin is, I mean, compared to certain heroes like Tusk and Clockwork, is maybe a bit more farm dependent than those heroes. I mean, he obviously picks up his level 6, and that's what gives him his ganking mechanism. But
this
Courier,
rotation.
eHome, do they want it? Do
They're
they not
thinking
want
about it.
They want
No, they can't do it anymore.
No,
they waited too long.
They hesitated way too long. That's going to be a smoke spoiled. They do get to see some of these stacks, though, and they can actually farm it up. I mean, they've got the Lightning ready to go. They also have the Winter Wyvern and Splinter Blast, so they're going to go for it. Meanwhile, top lane, we do have a 3-man smoke. We'll see how that goes as eHome clear through stacks.
This is what I was talking about in the very beginning of the game. I don't know if they switched to us in time, but Luna's such a weak hero that you can just rotate in and kill her, and she's not even going to have enough time to pop anything.
Nope. Immediately taken out by the Snowball, and silenced up as well, unable to get off that ultimate. It's funny thing is, like, YJ was backing up at the right time, too, so they actually are just making a full-on lane switch. That's what they're doing. So they're putting Universe now at the bottom lane, and with that, obviously, smoke up, they transfer their tri-lane to the top lane to put pressure on Luna. Universe, smart TP out, it seems.
That failed smoke by eHome just had so many ripple repercussions for EG. Because if they had been able to kill the Gyrocopter there, then maybe he isn't able to go to that top gank where they kill the Luna and it slows down EG even more. Right. And they're able to get some control on the map, and they force somebody down to help out Fear. But it was just weird because they had the opportunity to get the Courier, and then they decided to go for it after it's past them, over the tree line. Like, they'd all have to hit it twice for them to be able to get that, but...
indecision is a killer.
Yeah, they just had to go for it or not. I think they probably could have killed Fear if they hadn't done that, but... It's not going to matter. They should be able to trade towers here, but still, it's those little things that kind of separate you from the top.
Yeah, it's why the reason we're really pointing it out is these things specifically is what has oftentimes gotten eHome behind when they're actually playing usually a very even and crisp, clean game.
Play smart than just one or two execution mistakes.
Our TK now has his level 7. Evil Geniuses have been clearing through the enemy jungle, though, with the regeneration of some mail. He's got a decent amount of farm. Looks like he's going to be going for the Orchid first. Makes a lot of sense versus the Leshrac, obviously.
Yeah, they're actually all grouped up here at top, and Fear, he's not really afraid. There's not a whole lot that can burst him down where PPD and AUI can rotate in to help him, and they're even going to slow down the push at top by dragging the creeps over, and it's just going to get AUI as level 5, get PPD some much-needed experience.
There are some rotations out from eHome up to this top lane now, but Fear is already backing himself up. He's going for a rather stat-heavy build. Phase Boots, Ring of Aquila, and the drums all being committed for with the Magic Wand on top.
Alright, so they just smoked S3. Sumail doesn't have the best mana pool to work with, but it shouldn't matter.
They see a lot of heroes already, thanks to this ward, which Lanham just countered. Still looks like they're going to go for CTY first. DDC does not have the ultimate to counter. He just has the Cold Embrace, so...
They're waiting for him to push up a little bit more, and EG's prepped for this, but it does look like eHome have an understanding of what's going on, especially when they decided to deward that ward, but Sumail just might want to walk away with DDC at the very least.
Yeah. Smoke, not the hero they really wanted, but it's something they just have to content themselves with. It's better than the eHome Smoke, which missed the Courier, I suppose.
Yeah, you get away with something at that point. The hope is that you kill the Leshrac, further slow down his Bloodstone, but if not, getting a support is better than nothing here. EG, they've taken control of this top lane pretty heavily, but it does leave the rest of the lanes open, and if you notice that YJ realizes that the safest place on the map is the enemy jungle, and this is the correct